I got fired on a Monday morning with zero explanation. 8 months later, the company shut down completely. But here's the twist. I'm not the one who lost everything. They did. So this is my story, and I need to get it out because honestly, I'm still processing how the tables turned so dramatically. This isn't about revenge or schadenfreude. This is about what happens when karma actually works the way it's supposed to. And trust me, there are plot twists you won't see coming. Twists that made me question everything I thought I knew about justice, loyalty, and how the universe sometimes has a way of balancing things out. Let me take you back to the beginning. 5 years. That's how long I gave to this tech startup. 5 years of my life. I was employee number 12, back when we were just a scrappy little team working out of a cramped office space, sharing desks, eating ramen for lunch, dreaming about making it big. I was brought on as a senior infrastructure engineer. Basically, I was the guy who kept the lights on. Literally, servers, deployments, cloud architecture, backups, uptime monitoring, security patches, database optimization. Every single system that mattered, I built it or maintained it, and I was good at my job, really good. Perfect reviews for 4 straight years. Never missed an on-call shift, even when it meant waking up at 3 in the morning to fix something. Never got written up, never had a single complaint from leadership. I wasn't just doing my job, I was carrying that entire infrastructure on my back. When things broke at 2 a.m., I was the one fixing them. When clients had issues, I was the one making sure their data was safe. When we scaled from 12 employees to 80, I was the one making sure our systems could handle it. I believed in what we were building. I really did. I turned down offers from bigger companies because I wanted to be part of something from the ground up. I wanted to see this thing succeed. I put in 60, 70-hour weeks sometimes, not because anyone forced me to, but because I cared. Because I thought we were building something that mattered. I had friends there too. Real friends, or so I thought. Marcus from the sales team. We'd grab lunch together every week. Talk about life, our goals, our dreams. Sarah from marketing, we'd joke around in the break room, share memes, complain about bad coffee together. David from product management. We'd go out for drinks after work sometimes, blow off steam, talk about our frustrations with leadership. These weren't just coworkers, these were people I trusted, people I'd helped when they needed it. People I thought had my back. Then January 2024 hits and everything changes. We get a new CEO and CFO. The CEO's name was Richard Caldwell, slick corporate type, came from a big finance background, always wore expensive suits, always talked about disrupting the market and maximizing shareholder value. The kind of guy who used business jargon like it was a second language. Synergize, leverage our core competencies, optimize our burn rate. All that nonsense. From day one, things start changing. And not in a good way. Richard starts cutting corners. And I mean really cutting corners. The kind of corners that make engineers like me lose sleep at night. First, they eliminate our redundancy systems. You know, the backup servers that kick in if the main ones go down? Gone. Too expensive, Richard said in an all-hands meeting. We can manage the risk. We need to be leaner. Then they start cutting our backup protocols. The systems that save copies of all our data in case something goes catastrophically wrong, scaled way back. We're paying too much for storage, the CFO announced. Let's just do weekly backups instead of daily. That's plenty. I remember sitting in that meeting thinking, are you people insane? This is our clients' data. Their entire businesses run on our platform. If something goes wrong and we can't restore their data, we're done. We're finished. We'll get sued into oblivion. But they didn't want to hear it. Then it gets worse. They start pushing unsafe builds to production. Features that haven't been properly tested. Code that our engineering team is saying isn't ready. But the sales team, led by my friend Marcus, has already promised these features to clients. So Richard says ship it anyway. Deal with the bugs later. Move fast and break things, he kept saying. Like he was some kind of Silicon Valley visionary. And they keep making promises to clients that are physically impossible to deliver without completely overloading our servers. Big deliverables, complex features, enterprise-level stuff that requires serious infrastructure. But we don't have that infrastructure anymore because Richard cut it to save money. I'm sitting in meetings every week saying, hey, this is dangerous. We're one outage away from losing everything. We need to slow down and do this right. We need to rebuild our safety nets before we keep scaling. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't being negative. I was being a responsible engineer who understood the systems we were working with. I'd built these systems. I knew exactly what they could handle and what they couldn't. And every time, Richard would smile this condescending smile. He'd nod. He'd say things like, "I appreciate your perspective, but I think you're being overly cautious. We need to move faster than that. The market won't wait for us." Sarah from marketing would chime in, agreeing with Richard. "We need to be more aggressive with our positioning. We can't let our competitors get ahead." David from product would side with leadership too. "The roadmap is already set. We can't keep delaying features." And Marcus from sales, the guy I'd considered a real friend, he'd shake his head at me like I was being difficult. "Come on, man. We've already promised this to clients. We can't back out now. Just make it work." Just make it work. Like infrastructure is magic, like you can just wish systems into being stable. I tried escalating. I went to the CTO. I went to the VP of engineering. I even put together a whole presentation showing exactly what could go wrong, with data and projections and real examples from other companies that had failed doing exactly what we were doing. I offered to build a better plan. A plan where we could still deliver what clients needed but do it safely without risking catastrophic failure. Richard sat through my presentation with his arms crossed. When I finished, he said, "I appreciate the effort, but I think you're overthinking this. We've got it under control." We didn't have it under control. Not even close. Looking back, I think that's when I should have started looking for a new job. When I realized they weren't going to listen no matter what I said. But I didn't, because I still believed. I still thought maybe they'd come around. Maybe they'd see reason before it was too late. I was wrong. Then one Monday morning, I wake up and check my email. There's a message from Richard himself. Short, cold, to the point. "Effective immediately, your position is terminated. Return company assets by end of business day. No further explanation will be provided." I read it 3 times, 4 times. I kept thinking there must be some mistake. This has to be meant for someone else, not me. I've been here 5 years. I'm one of the most senior people on the technical team. My reviews have been perfect, but no. It was real. No meeting, no warning. No "Hey, can we talk?" No, "We need to discuss your performance." Nothing. Just bye. Clean break. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Honestly, I just sat there staring at my laptop screen for probably 20 minutes, trying to process what I was reading. I'd been there longer than Richard, longer than the CFO, longer than half the board members. I knew that company inside and out. I built that infrastructure from scratch, and Richard just fired me. Without explanation, without even the courtesy of a conversation. I got dressed and went into the office. I needed to understand what was happening. When I walked in, people looked away. My so-called friends, Marcus, Sarah, David, they all avoided eye contact. Nobody would talk to me. The CTO pulled me aside into a conference room. He looked uncomfortable, like he didn't want to be having this conversation. "I'm sorry," he said. "This wasn't my decision." "Then whose decision was it?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Richard wants to go in a different direction." Different direction. What does that even mean? A different direction with infrastructure? A different direction with reliability? A different direction with not having catastrophic system failures? I asked him what I did wrong. What performance issue led to this? He couldn't give me an answer. Just kept saying different direction over and over like it was a script he'd been told to stick to. Then he told me not to tell anyone anything. "It's confidential," he said. "Richard needs to control the messaging around this." Which is corporate speak for "we don't want people asking questions we don't want to answer." I packed my stuff, 5 years of work, 5 years of memories into a cardboard box, my favorite coffee mug that someone got me for my work anniversary, some books on system architecture, a little plant my desk neighbor gave me, random cables and adapters, a hoodie with the company logo that I used to wear proudly. I walked past Marcus's desk. He was on a phone call, didn't even look up. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't acknowledge that his friend of 5 years was being escorted out of the building. I walked past Sarah's desk. She glanced at me and then quickly looked back at her computer screen. Pretended to be busy. David was in a meeting room. Saw me walking by was my box. Turned away and kept talking to whoever he was meeting with. These were my friends, people I'd trusted. People I'd helped countless times. And they couldn't even look me in the eye. I handed in my badge at the front desk. The receptionist looked sad. She'd always been nice to me. "Good luck," she said quietly. She was one of the only people who seemed to care. And I walked out, just like that. 5 years of loyalty, gone in one email and one awkward conversation. I sat in my car in the parking lot for probably an hour, just sitting there, not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, feeling completely blindsided and betrayed. But here's where the story takes a turn. Here's where things start to shift. I went home and I did what any rational person would do. I started applying for jobs, sent my resume to dozens of companies, reached out to my network, set up informational interviews. I wasn't going to let Richard destroy me, and you know what? Within 2 weeks, I got a call back. A tech company, bigger than the startup, more established, more stable. They were impressed with my experience. They liked that I'd built infrastructure from scratch. They appreciated that I'd been at one place for 5 years, showed loyalty and dedication. The interview process was intense. Multiple rounds, technical interviews, culture fit interviews, meeting with the team, but I crushed it. Because I knew my stuff, because I was good at what I did regardless of what Richard thought. They offered me a position. Senior Infrastructure Engineer. Better title than before, and here's the kicker. 20% more money, 20% more than I was making at the startup. I took the job, started 3 weeks after getting fired. Meanwhile, back at the startup, plot twist number 1. Within 8 weeks of firing me, the systems I warned them about started collapsing, catastrophically. I heard about it through LinkedIn. People were posting about the outages. Former coworkers were reaching out to me privately, asking if I'd heard what was going on. Apparently, the platform started having major issues, not small bugs, full system failures. They had a catastrophic 3-day outage, 3 days where the entire platform was down. Clients couldn't access their data, everything was offline. 3 days. And just like I predicted, they couldn't restore from backups. Because Richard had turned off the backup systems to save money. Emails were lost. Databases got corrupted. Client data that they'd been trusted to keep safe. Gone. Permanently lost. I found out later that the remaining engineers had been pulling all-nighters trying to manually recover data. Trying to piece together corrupted databases. But a lot of it was just gone forever. Clients started panicking. Rightfully so. The support tickets piled up. Hundreds of angry clients demanding answers. Demanding their data back. Threatening legal action. One major client, a company paying them something like $2 million a year, pulled their entire contract and sued. Other clients followed. Contract cancellations. Refund demands. Lawsuits. Revenue tanked. They lost something like 40% of their customer base in a matter of weeks, and the engineers who were still there, they started leaving. One by one, they jumped ship. The VP of engineering quit. 3 senior developers left in the same week. The lead DevOps person, the database architect, all gone. But here's what's interesting. I heard through the grapevine that Marcus, Sarah, and David, my former friends who wouldn't even say goodbye to me, they all tried to jump ship too. They saw the writing on the wall. They started applying to other companies, trying to get out before everything collapsed. But here's the thing about betrayal. Here's the thing about being complicit in toxic leadership. Word gets around. Marcus tried to get a job at 3 different companies. All 3 rejected him. Why? Because when they called for references, when they did back-channel checks, people talked. People knew he'd been part of the problem at the startup. That he'd overpromised to clients. That he'd pressured the engineering team to deliver impossible things. That he'd sided with Richard over the people who actually knew what they were talking about. Sarah couldn't land a job either. She'd been so focused on aggressive marketing, on overstating what the product could do, that she burned bridges in the industry. Companies didn't want someone who'd been part of such a spectacular failure. David got a few interviews, but they all fell through. Because product managers who ignore engineering constraints, who push unrealistic roadmaps, who prioritize appearances over functionality, they're toxic, and nobody wanted that toxicity on their team. Meanwhile, plot twist number 2, the company went completely insolvent. The investors started asking serious questions. Why is revenue down? Why are clients leaving? Why is the platform unstable? Why are all the senior engineers quitting? Richard tried to spin it. Tried to make it sound like everything was under control. Blamed it on market conditions. Blamed it on the previous infrastructure team, which was basically blaming me even though I wasn't there anymore. But investors aren't stupid. They pulled funding. The Series C round fell apart. Nobody wanted to invest in a sinking ship. The share price cratered, dropped to almost nothing. Without new funding, the company couldn't operate. Payroll got delayed. Once, twice. Employees started quitting because they weren't getting paid. In October, 8 months after they fired me, the company officially shut down. Sent out an email to all remaining employees. Effective immediately, operations are ceasing. All employees are laid off. 80 people, gone. Unemployed in one day. And Richard? Here's where it gets really interesting. Richard got fired by the board before the company even shut down. They blamed him for the collapse. And they were right to blame him. He'd ignored expert advice. He'd made reckless decisions. He'd driven the company into the ground. But here's the thing about CEOs who fail spectacularly. Their reputations follow them. Richard tried to land another CEO position. Applied to dozens of companies. Got rejected every single time. Because when companies did their due diligence, when they looked into his background, they found the disaster he'd created. They found the articles about the company collapse. They found the lawsuits. They found the angry former employees posting about him on Glassdoor. Nobody wanted to touch him. He was radioactive in the industry. He tried pivoting. Tried applying for VP positions, director positions, anything in tech leadership. Nothing. Every door was closed. His savings started running out. He'd been living a certain lifestyle. Expensive apartment, expensive car, expensive everything. That all had to go. I heard through the grapevine that he'd lost his house, that he was struggling to make ends meet, that he'd taken a massive fall from grace. But I didn't think much about it. I was busy with my new job, and my new job was going really well. At my new company, they actually listened to their engineers. They valued expertise. They made smart decisions about infrastructure. They didn't cut corners. They did things right. And I thrived. I absolutely thrived in that environment. Within 6 months, I got promoted. They made me lead infrastructure engineer, put me in charge of a whole team, gave me more responsibility, more authority, and yes, more money. I was making double what I'd been making at the startup. Double. And I was actually enjoying my work again, building systems the right way, working with people who respected my expertise, making a real impact. A year after that, I got promoted again. Director of Infrastructure. Now I was in leadership meetings. Now I was making strategic decisions about the company's technical direction. Now I had real influence. And the company kept growing. We were doing things right, so we were successful. Clients were happy. Systems were stable. Revenue was increasing. We raised funding easily because investors trusted us. 3 years after getting fired from that startup, I got promoted to VP of Engineering. I was now a C-suite executive. I had a corner office. I had equity in a company that was actually worth something. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, and my company kept growing. We acquired smaller companies. We expanded into new markets. We became a major player in our industry. 5 years after getting fired, I became CTO, Chief Technology Officer. I was now at the very top of the technical leadership chain. I had hundreds of people reporting to me. I was making decisions that affected the entire direction of the company. My life had completely turned around. I'd gone from fired and devastated to successful beyond my wildest dreams, all because I'd landed at a company that valued doing things right. And then plot twist number 3, the one you won't believe. 7 years after getting fired from that startup, 7 years after Richard Caldwell terminated me without explanation, I'm sitting in my office reviewing job applications for our facilities team. We're expanding our office space, need more support staff, more janitors to keep the building clean. My assistant brings me a stack of applications. I'm flipping through them, not paying too much attention because honestly, I trust my facilities manager to handle most of this. But I like to review every hire, even entry-level positions, because I believe in knowing everyone who works for the company. I get to one application and I freeze. The name at the top, Richard Caldwell, I read it again. Has to be a different Richard Caldwell, right? Common name, can't be the same guy. But then I see the employment history, CEO of my old startup, right there in black and white. The dates match up, it's him. Richard Caldwell, the man who fired me without explanation, who ignored every warning I gave, who drove a company into the ground, who thought he was smarter than everyone else. He's applying to be a janitor at my company. I sit back in my chair and just stare at the application. The universe has a sense of humor. I'll give it that. I read through his application carefully. It's desperate. You can feel the desperation in every word. He talks about being a hard worker, being reliable, being willing to do whatever it takes. He doesn't mention that he used to be a CEO. Doesn't mention his fancy MBA. Just lists some recent work history, odd jobs here and there, nothing substantial. I look at the photo he submitted. It's him, but he looks different. Older, worn down. The expensive suit is gone. He's wearing a regular button-down shirt that's seen better days. The confident smirk is gone. He just looks tired. I could reject this application with one click. I could make sure Richard Caldwell never sets foot in my building. After what he did to me, after how he treated me, I'd be justified. But here's the thing. I'm not Richard. I don't fire people without explanation. I don't make decisions based on ego or spite. I built my career on doing things right. So I call my facilities manager. This Richard Caldwell application, I say. What do you think? Seems fine, she says. He's overqualified if anything, but he needs the work. References check out. I'm inclined to hire him. Do it, I say. Hire him. 2 weeks later, Richard Caldwell starts work as a janitor at my company. He has no idea I work here. Why would he? It's a big company, hundreds of employees, and he's facilities staff. He's not interacting with C-suite executives. For months, I see him around the building sometimes, emptying trash cans, mopping floors, cleaning bathrooms. He keeps his head down, doesn't make eye contact with people, just does his work and stays invisible. He has no idea that the CTO of the company, the guy in the corner office on the top floor, is the same engineer he fired 7 years ago. And my former friends, Marcus, Sarah, and David, I heard they never recovered either. Marcus ended up taking a job way below his skill level, doing inside sales at a small company, making maybe a third of what he used to make. Last I heard, he was still there, stuck, unable to move up because his reputation in the industry was shot. Sarah left tech entirely. Couldn't get hired anywhere. Ended up working retail. I saw on Facebook that she was managing a clothing store at a mall. Nothing wrong with that work, but it's a far cry from marketing director at a tech startup. David was working as a freelance consultant, which is what people do when they can't get hired anywhere, scraping together contract gigs here and there. No stability, no benefits, just barely getting by. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. My company is thriving. We're doing everything right. We listen to our engineers. We make smart decisions. We build systems that work. And because of that, we're successful. Sometimes I think about introducing myself to Richard, walking up to him while he's mopping a floor and saying, "Hey, remember me? You fired me 7 years ago. Look at us now." But I don't, because I don't need to. The situation speaks for itself. He made his choices. He chose ego over expertise. He chose short-term thinking over long-term sustainability. He chose to surround himself with yes-men instead of people who would tell him the truth. And those choices have consequences. I made different choices. When I got fired, I could have become bitter. I could have given up. I could have let it destroy me. Instead, I kept pushing forward. I took the first good opportunity that came along. I worked hard. I proved my value. I built relationships with people who respected expertise. I made smart decisions. I helped build something real and sustainable. And those choices had consequences too, good consequences. About a year after Richard started working as a janitor, I'm walking through the building late one evening. Most people have gone home. I'm heading to my car in the parking garage. I see Richard in the hallway. He's emptying a trash can near the elevators. He looks up as I walk by. For a split second, our eyes meet, and I see the recognition. I see the moment when he realizes who I am. His eyes go wide. The color drains from his face. He opens his mouth like he's going to say something, but nothing comes out. I stop walking. We're standing there in the hallway, 7 years of history between us. "Richard," I say. It's the first time I've said his name out loud in years. I didn't know you worked here," he stammers. "I didn't know you were." "The CTO?" I finish for him. "Yeah, I am." He looks like he wants to disappear. Like he wants the floor to open up and swallow him. He's holding a trash bag in one hand, frozen in place. "I'm sorry," he says quietly, "for what I did, for firing you. I was wrong about everything." I nod slowly. "Yeah, you were." There's a long silence. I can see him struggling with what to say next, trying to figure out if he should explain himself, defend himself, beg for forgiveness. "I lost everything," he says finally. "The company failed. I couldn't get hired anywhere. I lost my house. My wife left me. I've been barely surviving for years. And I know it's my own fault. I know I did this to myself." I don't say anything. Just let him talk. "I should have listened to you," he continues. "You were right about everything. The backups, the infrastructure, all of it. If I just listened, if you just listened, that company would probably still exist," I say. "Those 80 people would still have jobs. You'd probably still be a CEO somewhere, and I'd probably still be working there, happy to be part of something successful." He nods, looks down at the floor. "I was arrogant. I thought I knew better. I thought business strategy was more important than technical expertise. I was an idiot." "Yeah, I agree. You were." Another silence. "Are you going to fire me?" he asks. "I wouldn't blame you if you did." I think about it for a moment. Really think about it. I could fire him. I'd be well within my rights. After what he did to me, it would be justified. But then I think about who I want to be. The kind of leader I want to be. The kind of person I want to be. "No," I say finally, "I'm not going to fire you. You're doing good work in facilities. My team says you're reliable, you show up on time, you do what you're supposed to do. That's all that matters." He looks up at me, surprised. "Really?" "Really," I confirm. "But I want you to understand something. I'm not keeping you here because I feel sorry for you. I'm not keeping you here because I'm trying to be the bigger person. I'm keeping you here because you're doing your job adequately, and I don't fire people who are doing their jobs." He nods slowly. "That's fair." "What happened to you? That's not my revenge," I continue. "That's just consequences. You made bad decisions and you're living with the results. Just like I made good decisions and I'm living with those results. That's how life works." "I understand," he says quietly. "Good," I say. "Then we're done here. Have a good evening, Richard." I start walking toward the elevator. Behind me, I hear him say, "Congratulations on your success. You deserved it." I don't turn around. Just raise my hand in acknowledgement and keep walking. When I get to my car, I sit there for a minute before starting the engine, processing what just happened, thinking about the journey that brought me here. 7 years ago, I was devastated, fired without explanation, feeling betrayed and lost, not knowing what would come next. And now I'm here, CTO of a successful company, making more money than I ever dreamed, leading a team of talented engineers, building systems that actually work, living a life I'm proud of. And Richard Caldwell, the man who fired me, who thought he was smarter than everyone, who drove a company into the ground with his arrogance, he's cleaning toilets in my building. I don't feel good about it. That's the weird thing. I thought I would. I thought if something like this ever happened, I'd feel vindicated, triumphant, like I'd won some kind of victory. But I don't feel any of that. I just feel kind of sad. Sad that it had to come to this. Sad that Richard's arrogance destroyed so many lives, including his own. Sad that Marcus, Sarah, and David, people I once considered friends, they're all struggling now because they made the wrong choice about who to support. It didn't have to be this way. That's what gets me. None of this had to happen. If Richard had just listened, if he'd valued expertise over ego, if he'd made smart decisions instead of reckless ones, if he built something sustainable instead of chasing short-term gains, then maybe that company would still exist. Maybe those 80 people would still have good jobs. Maybe Richard would still be a successful CEO. Maybe Marcus, Sarah, and David would still have thriving careers. And maybe I'd still be working there, building infrastructure, doing what I loved, part of a team I believed in. But that's not what happened. Richard made his choices. My former friends made their choices, and I made mine. I chose to keep moving forward. I chose to find a company that valued what I brought to the table. I chose to work hard and prove my worth. I chose to build a career based on expertise and integrity. And those choices led me here, to this moment, to this life. So to anyone out there watching this, anyone who's been fired unfairly, anyone who's been betrayed by people they trusted, anyone who's watching terrible leadership destroy something good, Here's what I want you to know. It gets better. Not immediately, not easily, but it gets better. When I got fired, I thought my career was over. I thought I'd never recover from that. I thought Richard Caldwell had destroyed my future, but he didn't. He couldn't. Because my value as an engineer, my skills, my expertise, my work ethic, none of that belonged to him. None of that was his to take away. The only thing he could take was that one job. And you know what? There are other jobs, better jobs. Jobs at companies that actually know what they're doing. So if you're going through something similar right now, if you've been fired by someone who doesn't appreciate you, if you're working for leaders who won't listen, here's my advice. Get out. Start looking for something better. Don't wait for things to magically improve. They won't. Bad leadership doesn't suddenly become good leadership. Update your resume. Reach out to your network. Apply to companies that have good reputations. Companies where people actually want to work. Companies that value expertise. And when you land somewhere better, work hard. Prove your worth. Show them what you're capable of. Build relationships. Be the kind of employee, the kind of colleague, the kind of leader that you wish you'd had. Because here's the secret that Richard never understood. Here's the thing that makes companies actually successful. It's not about ego. It's not about who's the smartest person in the room. It's not about ignoring advice from people who know better than you. It's about listening. It's about valuing the people who do the actual work. It's about making smart decisions even when they're not the flashy decisions. It's about building something sustainable instead of something that looks good in a pitch deck. Companies that understand this, they succeed, they grow, they thrive. They become places where talented people want to work. Companies that don't understand this, they fail, they collapse. They become cautionary tales. They become stories like the one I'm telling you right now. And the people who lead those companies, the Richard Caldwells of the world, they end up exactly where Richard ended up. At the bottom, starting over, trying to rebuild from nothing. Meanwhile, the people they underestimated, the people they fired, the people they didn't think were important, those people move on. They find better opportunities. They build successful careers. They become leaders themselves. And sometimes, years later, those two paths cross again. And when they do, the universe has a way of showing you exactly who made the right choices and who made the wrong ones. I see Richard around the building sometimes. He keeps his head down, does his work, doesn't cause problems, and honestly, I respect that. He's doing what he needs to do to survive. There's no shame in that. But I also see the lesson in it, the lesson that arrogance has consequences, that bad leadership has consequences, that firing good people because they tell you things you don't want to hear, that has consequences too. Marcus, Sarah, and David, I don't see them, but I hear about them through the grapevine, still struggling, still unable to rebuild their careers, still paying the price for choosing the wrong side. And me, I'm thriving. My company's thriving. We're building something real, something sustainable, something that's going to last. Not because I'm smarter than Richard, not because I'm better than him as a person, but because I made better choices, because I valued the right things, because I learned from that experience instead of letting it destroy me. So if you're in a bad situation right now, remember this story. Remember that bad leaders eventually fail. Remember that good work eventually gets recognized. Remember that the people who do things right, they're the ones who succeed in the long run. It might not happen immediately. It might take months or years. You might have to go through some really hard times first. But if you keep pushing forward, if you keep doing good work, if you keep making smart choices, you'll get there. You'll find success. You'll build the career you deserve. And maybe, just maybe, years from now, you'll have your own story to tell. A story about how you went from the bottom to the top. A story about how the people who underestimated you ended up watching you succeed. That's not revenge. That's not getting even. That's just the natural consequence of good work, good choices, and good character. And honestly, that's better than any revenge could ever be. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me about the times you were underestimated. Tell me about the times you proved people wrong. And if you're going through a hard time right now, if you just got fired, if you're struggling to find your next opportunity, hang in there. Your time is coming. Your success is waiting for you. You just have to keep pushing forward to find it. We're all just trying to build something meaningful out here. And sometimes the path to success goes through some really dark valleys. But if you keep walking, you'll eventually reach the other side. And when you do, the view from the top is pretty amazing.